you're trying to suggest to me that there are, quote unquote, very socially conscious lawyers who are prepared to work for free in defense of children?
Yes, there are, and there are quite a number.
There are quite a number. So they have the expertise, having studied children's law. What makes them particularly keen to help in this particular area?
They might not have been specialized in children's law as such, but some are experts in criminal law and are able to help facilitate those cases and ensure that they work with whichever agencies in whose hands those cases are, so that they sustain a case and ensure that convictions are derived from those cases.
I'll go back to a line of questioning,
yes,
which is the person who ought to benefit from this, the child, doesn't know what to do. Let's, for example, work on the idea of corporal punishment.
Yes.
Children being beaten up at school by their teachers.
Yes.
Is this acceptable or no?
It is not acceptable.
But it takes place.
Yes, it does.
And it's been taking place for a long time.
Yes.
For how long shall it continue whilst the organizations such as yours and the government exist?
It should stop. Yes, I agree with you that it should stop. Unfortunately, we are working with a problem such as corporal punishment that you've mentioned that has a long history with us. Corporal punishment has been there for a very long time. We have a problem with teachers who still believe that spanking somebody's child is the way to correct them. The reason being that many of we adults draw a lot from the way we were brought up. And because of our backgrounds as children, having grown up being beaten, for example, we also believe that we should beat other people's children in order to discipline them. But it is high time that we got out of that mindset, so that then we start to employ new methods of correcting children.
So are you suggesting, again, I'm asking for clarification, that the modern day parent doesn't beat his or her child, but it's only the teachers who do at school? In other words, there is no parental involvement. Parents are not to blame, because we're drawing the spiral. It's the parent who might beat up their kids as well, defile their kids. To what extent are parents responsible?
To a very large extent, because as they say, charity begins at home. Many of our parents also have the same background of being beaten as children, and therefore they have grown up believing that they should also beat their children so as to correct them. And sometimes there are quite a number of cases that we've had where parents have even encouraged schools to administer corporal punishment so as to correct children. And I must say that the law has changed. The law outlaws corporal punishment, right from the Constitution to the subsidiary laws that deal with children. They have all outlawed corporal punishment. The problem is with the awareness that people need to have. And the awareness ought to actually start with the law enforcement agency and the ministry in charge of education in this country to ensure that corporal punishment does not happen. But it is true that in many places in this country, you still hear of schools from primary school to high school especially, where children are punished in a corporal way, physically.
Are we naming and blaming? Are they state schools? Are they private schools? From where you work, who is most responsible? Who are the perpetrators of this heinous crime?
It's mostly state schools, but we have had a number of complaints from private schools, some of them very high-cost private schools, where children have been physically punished and in a very dehumanizing way. And we have gone in sometimes to correct some of those situations.
But, okay, we have a case study.
Yes.
I have a child. My child comes in for half-term, recess, whatever the word may be, and says that at school I am being beaten up by Mr. X or Mrs. X. Mm-hmm. Take us along a line of action with clan in complicity from then on. What happens? I, as a parent, go to your offices. So the question is, do you have offices everywhere?
We do not have offices everywhere. We have an office in Nairobi, we have an office in Garissa, and we have an office in Western Kenya. But that's not to say that when matters come up in places where we do not have offices, we do not take care of them.
So that if people don't know you exist, they aren't going to invoke your services, surely? If I'm in Turkana East or somewhere where you're not operating,
we do not
because
have
we want
to
get rid of a problem. So we're talking about which actions will make the problem go away. And now you're saying you're not everywhere, but if people want to use you, they can do something else. I'm not entirely convinced.
We are not abandoning them.
Right.
What we are saying is that we do not have to be physically present in those areas so as to provide a service. There are competent people in some of those areas, including Masterbit, where we've mentioned, who can provide those very good services to children. The issue is with the awareness that the service exists. And many times when people have referred those cases to us and the matter is in a place where we cannot reach, we try our best to reach a competent authority in that area. There might not be a lawyer, but there is a children's officer, for example, that can take up that matter and follow it through.
Right. As a parent, I might go to the school when nasty things happen to our children. We go to the school, we find the headmaster, we say, headmaster, something awful is happening in your school, head teacher, and which teacher might be responsible, and then we name the teacher.
Yes.
We say, this is the person who is responsible.
Yeah.
So there are two things. Either the headmaster is colluding and turning a blind eye to this happening in the school, or the teacher is doing something without the consent of the administration.
Yeah.
Which of these two people is going to end up in jail?
It depends. It could actually even be both of them.
Right.
Beating a child is inflicting physical injury to that child. And in the law, that's already a criminal offense. That's how people should see it. And therefore, for parents, and that's why we emphasize on enlightenment, they ought to know that when somebody inflicts physical injury to that child, that is assault, and it can be taken care of as a case of assault. And such a person ought to be reported to the police. The police ought to take it up, provide all the services required, ensure that such a person is apprehended and charged in a court of law.
Good. Are there any statistics to show that perhaps this has been the case and the rise in curbing this social menace are there for all to see?
Yes, there are, and we can provide them. We have them, and we are able to provide those statistics. And there are quite a number of cases where people, teachers, for example, have been charged for assaulting children in the name of discipline, and action has been taken. They have been removed from the duties of teaching, and some of them have actually been jailed.
I want us to take us to this idea of the Constitution.
Yes.
The role of government. In what way do you think you are being aided and abetted by government? Because there is a Bill of Rights. So we have a Bill of Rights, we have the Children's Act of the year 2006. The Act has changed yet again. Why this persistent preoccupation with changing clauses in an Act when the problem is very visible to the naked eye?
Because we have to respond to the needs of the times. When these laws are made, they are never perfect, because we respond to the needs as they are at that particular time. But as we continue in the practice, we realize that there could be certain omissions in the law that ought to be corrected. And that's why you see these amendments. So I usually have no problem with the amendments. It's just about responding to the needs of the times as they arise. And therefore, you will see a lot of changes in law, including our own constitution, even in other spheres other than child protection. You'll see quite a few amendments happening because society is dynamic. We keep discovering things every other day. The things that used to happen 10 years ago that would have been, that the law would have ignored are things that we need to respond to today. The reason being that society is moving forward. There's a lot of changes in terms of technology, in terms of the freedoms that we enjoy, in terms of modernization and things like that. So certain issues keep arising, and the law needs to continue to respond to those needs as they arise.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you, you've been in this particular area for some time.
Yeah.
We have a new government, We had 5 years, a new constitution, the constitution of 2010.
Yes.
Let's give ourselves 5 years.
Yes.
What are the gains that you might foresee in that time?
There are many gains that I foresee. First, I see a government that has responded well to issues of protecting children in this country. For instance, there never used to be a provision of legal services to children by government that are not paid for. But right now, government, with the partnership of civil society, have set up a national legal aid and awareness program with the aim of eventually government taking over the provision of legal services to children and other groups in society. So in 5 years, and that is achievable, we would like to see a government that is actually providing free legal services for children, both children who have been abused and even those who have committed offenses. We believe that that is something that the government should be able to achieve. All they have to do is plan well, invest heavily in the protection of children.
With money coming from, do you have any idea where if it's a cash-strapped government, where this might become a priority very quickly?
We do not believe that the government is cash-strapped. They have invested in huge projects that they have been able to take care of very well, and protection of children is not too much to ask for. It does not cost as much as what, for instance, our politicians are asking for.
Edward Ouma, children's rights advocate, thank you very much for coming on the JSO interview.
Thank you, John.